Hey everyone, it's CL. So for today's video, when I was brainstorming like video ideas, this is one that I kind of want to share, kind of to get it off my chest and like say it out loud. And I'm curious if anyone else has had like similar experiences. So what I mean is that because I'm an introvert, when I do speak or when I do say something, like I'm very selective of what I say, what comes out of my mouth. I feel like when I do say things, this isn't all the time, but I think most of the time, that I'm not reckless with my words. I'm not careless. Sometimes I think when people interact with me, or if I see other people interacting with others, they might say things that and their approach of how they say it is careless, if that makes any sense. So I came up with my list of experiences that I want to share today. I guess I'll title this video Things That People Have Said to Me That Made Me Cringe with Humiliation. That title might be too long, but that's what we're gonna go with. So these are the things that people have said out loud to me that kind of made me like, oh, internally I was just like, ugh. And I felt like humiliated a little bit inside, like embarrassed a little bit inside. And I think it's one of those things, like the people that said it didn't even register with them that it would make me feel this way. Maybe they just missed it, or maybe they didn't care. Whatever the reason, if I was in their shoes, I would have never done that. I would have never done that. But let's go ahead and get into it. It will make more sense as I go off this list that is in no particular order. Let's go ahead and get into it. I think I'll go ahead and start the first one from when I was younger. Younger as in, I want to say junior high, like the first year of junior high, whatever age that is. So when I was in junior high, we had PE, physical education class, gym class. And, you know, naturally when you're in a class, you tend to eventually make friends, I guess. Make friends, or there's that group of people or person that you end up hanging out with every day. Somehow, some way, I ended up hanging out with these two girls. We all didn't know each other before the class started, but somehow we started talking and hanging out every day during class and stuff. And out of the two girls, there was one in particular that was like, she's just one of those people that always had an opinion, always had an attitude, I guess. But these were the two girls that I would hang out with during PE, and then when we would have to do laps, we would do laps together. And I thought it was nice. It was nice to have these girls to talk to. But at some point during the year, the two girls ended up getting in a fight with each other for whatever reason. I was not a part of that. Apparently the fight happened outside of PE class. Fight as in argument. They had some sort of falling out. So during PE, we would still talk with each other. And then, so the girl that has a lot of attitude, she's a little bit brazen, I was walking with her one day, and mind you, this was practically the majority of the year where we would hang out all the time, you know? And she would always like talk to me about her life, the drama you're going through, who you like, all that stuff, right? Something came up. We were doing laps and we were walking the lap, and then something came up. I want to say it was something to the extent of like, oh, thanks for listening to me, or to that extent, oh, thanks for being there, something like that. And to where I replied just naturally, this is before like the world shattered my soul, I was like, oh, well, it's because we're friends. And I said that so freely, right? And then her immediate reaction was, oh, we're not friends. And she was so serious. She was so serious. And immediately I just got quiet. I was like, oh, we're not? And then in my mind, I was like, then why have we been hanging out all year if we're not friends, you know? And then the rest of our lap walking, the rest of like PE class, she noticed that I got really quiet. Well, by that point, I was kind of like perplexed. And then I'm like, why has this girl been hanging out with me, right? And then eventually she goes, just kidding, we're friends. Like, just like that. So unconvincing. And then I didn't say anything, I didn't respond, but that from that day forward, I had nothing to do with her. Like, I did not want to have anything to do with her. I didn't want to do any more laps with her. And mind you, I was a really good runner at that time, and she was not, and I would walk the lap just so I could hang out with these girls, right? And then once that I realized that this person didn't consider me a friend or whatever, that was her reaction towards me, I totally just didn't want to have anything to do with her. I would then, from then on forward, I would run my laps just to get it over with, and then I hung out with different people, some boys that I knew. But that's one thing that to this day, I'm just like, then why was she hanging out with me? Then why would she seek me out and want to walk with me, want to talk with me? Like, what was I then? What was I? Was I her therapist? Like, to this day, I'm still confused. But I think that is why I don't use the label friend, especially if someone, especially not until someone else throws it out there first. Like, if, like my long-term friend, my bestie from California, she's the one that labeled me as her best friend, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, you're my best friend too. So I am hesitant to use that label because of this past experience. All right, so for my next experience, this actually occurred at Sephora. I want to say it's Sephora. It was one of those makeup places where they have an earpiece, like a one earpiece, and it hangs down. And if they need to talk to someone else in another department or another section, they would talk through their earpiece, right? So I want to say it's Sephora. I was in Sephora doing my thing. This was a handful of years ago because I lived in a different state at this time. But I remember I was looking for makeup foundation, and mind you, I've said this before, I'm very insecure when it comes to my skin, like my facial skin, because I suffered from acne when I was younger, especially a teenager. I had acne everywhere all over my face. It was just horrible. So now that I'm an adult, it has definitely got down, but you'll notice in my videos I still get acne. I have adult acne, it's just not as bad as it was when I was a teenager. So I was looking for a foundation, and then I'm that person that not only do I check the color, I check, like, is it good for oily skin? Is it good for dry skin? And then I came across this foundation that was like for acne. Like, it says on the bottle, like, good for acne prone skin. It didn't have my color out in the box section, you know. They had the one that I could sample and see if it's my color, but when I came to purchase it, they didn't have the one in the box that was like unopened. So at Sephora, they come by many times and they ask you, oh, do you need help? Can I help you with anything? And I asked this lady, and I was like, oh, can you help me find this foundation? I don't see it out here. And then, you know, sometimes they'll pull out a drawer or get it from somewhere. She couldn't find it either. And then she's like, oh, let me ask someone. And I thought that she was gonna get her microphone and ask somebody, but she ended up yelling across the entire room. She ended up yelling across the entire room to this person and was like, do we have this foundation? Can you check if they have this foundation? It's for acne. It's for acne prone skin. It says acne. It's for acne. She kept saying that, and in my mind, she kept saying it over and over because the other person across the room was like, what? I can't hear you. So she kept saying it over and over and over, and internally I was dying inside because I'm so insecure about it. And I didn't even look around. I could just feel my face getting red. Thankfully, I'm the type that my face doesn't get red outwardly. Like, inside I will feel hot, my body will feel hot, but outwardly I don't turn red, thankfully. So I just kind of stood there feeling humiliated, and I just kind of stared off at the products that were in front of me, just kind of staring at nothing. And I was just waiting for this lady to stop doing what she's doing, right? And then finally the lady goes, oh no, we don't have any more, sorry, maybe you can check back later to see if we get it back in stock, something. She said something, they don't have it. At that point, I just wanted her to get away from me. I remember just worrying that everybody was staring at me. You know that feeling, especially if you're the type of person that doesn't like being stared at? I like slowly looked around on both sides, everywhere I could, and then I realized, oh, okay, everybody's kind of doing their own thing. Thankfully, the Sephora was filled with a bunch of females. Like, I think I would have been even more insecure if there were like males there, even though they weren't paying attention to me. I was a little bit relieved that day it was just filled with a bunch of females, and they were doing their own thing. Thankfully, nobody was staring at me. Everyone was kind of looking for their own stuff. And, you know, generally when you go into a Sephora, you do have tunnel vision and you're doing your own thing, and I like that. But for a split moment, I was worried. I was like, oh my gosh, everybody's staring at me and everyone's gonna be like looking at my skin to see how bad it is. So thankfully, that didn't occur, but I did feel humiliated by this lady that should have used her microphone. Like, what is your microphone headset thing for then? So I was totally confused. The next one is something I encountered at work. Now this, you know, when you work with people, once again, you naturally hang out with the people that you work with, right? During lunch. So this was right out of college during my job when I was a collector. And then during lunch, we would sit together and kind of vent and kind of talk about how much we hate our jobs and just talk about various things. So I was sitting with my little group of people. I think at that time there was a handful, 5 or 6 maybe. And the conversation shifted to like smoking weed. Now I'm not going to judge you. You do what you want to do. Don't force me to do it, and don't allow it to negatively impact my life, right? So the conversation shifted to like smoking weed, and then someone decided to like go one by one around the group for people to say yes or no whether or not they do. And everybody said yes, and I was like the only person that said no. I was like, oh no, I never done that. I don't do it, and I have no interest in doing it, so no. The answer from me is no, I do not. I refrain. And immediately the vibe shifts. Now, I don't think it was intentional of everyone in the group to give off this vibe, but I think it's because the leader of the group, I guess, the one that was more outspoken, kind of was the first person to lead the way and being like, oh, she's a goody two shoes, you know? And then everyone else like followed suit, like, yeah, goody two shoes. And then maybe I am, but at the same time, like, I would never impose my ideas on someone else, you know? Like, I am that person where I just do my own thing. I stay in my lane. If I don't want to be somewhere, I will leave. If I don't want to do something, I won't do it. And I just remember sitting there thinking like, oh my gosh, everybody is looking down on me, I guess, in a sense, like looking down on me, or they think negatively of me. That was like the vibe that I was getting. But thankfully there was one guy from Jersey. This was in California. I worked in California. This guy is a native of New Jersey, and he was the only one that defended me. And he's like, he was older too, a little bit older than me, maybe by like 10 to 15 years. And he was like, come on guys, come on. She's a good girl. She's a good girl. It's like that Jersey accent saying, leave her alone, you know, that she's a good girl. And I actually appreciated that, like that small little something. It was relieving that someone else was okay with it, if that makes any sense. Like, this person was okay with me being this way, you know? So I never told him that I was appreciative that he kind of stood up for me. Even though it had no impact to the group, they still kind of rolled their eyes and stuff, but I was appreciative to him that he did stand up for me, that, you know, as a whole, collectively, there was at least one person that didn't care what my preferences were when it comes to smoking, you know? So in that sense, I did feel embarrassed in the sense that everyone was looking at me and judging me, and I don't like that. To this day, I don't like that. I don't like being the center of attention. So yeah, internal cringe. It just made me, you know, didn't want to be there. All right, so this next one is at the same place where I worked, but I had since been promoted to a new role, and I was on this new team. And at work, whenever it was your birthday, we had the routine of like, oh, the whole team going out to lunch, and then your teammates would pay for your lunch, and that was like your special birthday thing from your team. So whenever your birthday would roll around, you would get an email, like someone on the team would initiate it with an email like, oh, where do you want to eat for your birthday? Everyone chooses where they want to eat for their birthday. So at that time, I want to say it was Red Robin. At that time, Red Robin was new to our area, and I really liked the bottomless fries, if this is the right place that I'm talking about. So I said that I wanted to go to Red Robin, you know? And then a handful of minutes later, one of the guys on my team was put out an email and says, who wants to vote to go somewhere else? He sent out an email and was like, Who wants to vote to go somewhere else? Let's go to this barbecue place instead. Who votes to go there instead, right? This is my birthday. It's my birthday celebration. He put out an email voting for to have the team vote to go somewhere else, right? And at first I was like, that is major cringe, okay? And completely rude. Like, this guy lacks a lot of common sense. He's done a lot of things that just you should not do at work. So anyways, I did notice that none of my teammates responded. Then even one of my teammates came over and he was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he did that. How rude. We're going where you want to eat, that's where we're going, right? But you know who the one person that responded to go somewhere else was? The one person that responded to this email that was like, yeah, I vote to go somewhere else, was my manager. My manager voted to go somewhere else. So yeah, that just totally made me cringe. I'm like, ugh, you guys suck balls. When your birthdays roll around, I'm calling in sick. But we ended up going to where I wanted to go. But in my mind, I'm just like, are you guys dumb? Do you lack any sense of common courtesy? It's just rude. All right, and the very last one to finish out this list is that when I got pregnant, I got pregnant. I started off very, very skinny before I got pregnant, and when I got pregnant, at my maximum weight, I got really heavy, really fast. That's why I have like loads of stretch marks. But I got just under 200 pounds, and for me, I'm very short. That's a lot of weight for me, and to this day, I still struggle with trying to lose weight. But the cringy part of this whole thing is that when I left for maternity leave, we got, I want to say it was 3 months of maternity leave. I left for maternity leave, I had my baby, and by the way, she's the best person in the world. And then my maternity leave was up and I returned to work. And when you return to work in our office, it's very safe. I guess I haven't worked too many places, but in our office, you have to check in with your ID card. And then the security guard asks for my ID, and he checks my ID, and then he looks up at me, and then he checks my ID, and then he goes, huh, you were a lot younger back then. As if back then was like 20 years ago. It was literally the span of my pregnancy. And this guy was like, huh, you looked a lot younger back then. And I was like, thank you. I didn't know what to say. I was totally taken aback, and I was just like, thank you. And I took my ID and I went and I sat at my desk to get everything set up. But I do remember like being upset later on. You know, like when you experience something in that moment, it doesn't hit you right away. Like your thought process doesn't kick in right away because you're just like, it's happening so fast and you can't really think about it. But then after you're out of the situation, you start playing it back in your head and thinking about it more. And I was just like, how rude. Like, why would people, what goes through people's minds that make them say the most cringiest things out loud, you know? Like, how rude. Could you have kept that to yourself? Is there a woman on the planet that wants to know that they looked a lot younger back then? Pretty much implying that you look a lot different, older, and not what you were. Yeah, thanks a lot, buddy. But all these experiences to this day, if I think about them, bother me a little bit to some extent, so I don't think about them. But I thought it'd be fun to kind of put this in a video to kind of make you all laugh. Like, when I play it back, I do laugh a little bit because I'm just like, how cringy, and it makes me laugh. But I want to know from you all, what is like the cringiest thing someone has said to you? Please leave it down below in the comments. I'm so curious. Thank you for watching, and I will see you later.